شكرا. Oh, where's that go? Oh, that goes ways, yeah. Squeezing in here. Quite a small little space.
How did you get in there?
I jumped over the wall.
You are full of surprises.
No kidding. Are you done? It's at least a bit cooler. Well, the Black Pyramid.
Black Pyramid of Dashur.
Dashur, Amenemhat the Third. Some interesting stuff in here. Welcome back to UnchartedX. This is Ben, and I hope that you're all doing well. Anyone with a genuine interest in the pyramids of Egypt can, and many do, find themselves faced with a lifetime's worth of study, a pursuit of details, nuance, and contradictions, a seemingly endless endeavour with no definitive, complete truth about the giant, enigmatic triangles in the desert ever really coming into sight. These fascinating monuments that emerge from our distant past seem to hang on to their secrets with a bullish tenacity, and rarely surrender new details or real facts about their original construction, purpose, or function. That's not to say that advances in our understanding don't happen, but we've quite literally been investigating the pyramids for millennia. Roman and Greek historians like Herodotus, Diodorus Siculus, Pliny, and Strabo all wrote about their observations in Egypt from as early as 600 BC. Persian and Arab historians and explorers from the Middle Ages and onwards also have many accounts of discoveries made at the pyramids, and I've covered some of them in other videos on this channel. It's only been in recent centuries that significant modern excavations have taken place at the pyramids, and that was only once the long-established processes of quarrying and destruction were halted, but it's probably fair to say that we're starting to figure it out. The last several decades have seen the advent of modern technologies being used to help progress our understanding. LiDAR and other scanning methods, ground-penetrating radar and other subsurface techniques, as well as robotics and the like, have all been utilised to try and unravel the mysteries contained in and around the pyramids. And I, for one, am glad that they stopped using dynamite as a technique for solving problems. As I'm sure most people watching this are aware, even cosmic particles and satellites have been utilised in the search for answers. For many years now, the Giza pyramids have been scanned using muon detection, a technique that takes quite a long time to resolve but has given us the tantalizing possibility of other massive voids or chambers within the Great Pyramid, and possibly even a whole other set of passages. A small but entirely new chamber, located just behind the chevrons of the main entrance, was discovered using this cosmic ray technique, and then confirmed to exist via an endoscopic camera. Then, of course, in 2025, the news story was that of Filippo Biondi and Armando May's remarkable new claims and their synthetic aperture radar / Doppler tomography technique. Although this story really did set the media landscape on fire in 2025, if you'd seen my video on the Labyrinth, you'd know that it's only but the latest iteration of several such space-based scanning technologies that have been aimed at the ancient sites and monuments of Egypt. This video today isn't about that technology or their claims about what's below the pyramids and the Giza Plateau, but I will say that the more I've learned about the technology, the more confident I have that they might actually be onto something. Biondi is a real expert in this field. He's an innovator who has created novel methods, and he and his team seem to be steadily addressing the concerns and criticisms that inevitably arise with such extraordinary claims. Time will tell, I suppose, but for myself, I started from a position of pretty extreme skepticism early in 2025 when this news first came out, and I progressed to now being fairly well convinced that this technology is valid, even if the interpretation of the results is something I still struggle to get my head around. The search for truth at the pyramids is not all high-tech rainbows and unicorns, however. At the end of the day, it's still actual on-the-ground research, excavations, and on-site work that will be the path towards any real solid answers. Unfortunately, though, and quoting Keith Hamilton here, architectural surveys and details of these monuments remains a low priority for the archaeologists and institutions in charge of the sites. Some of the data that we rely on to understand the dimensions and construction of these monuments is a century old at this point, from pioneers like Flinders Petrie, and most large-scale surveying and measurement studies ended well into last century, with the works of those like Dieter Arnold in the 1980s or Maragioglio and Rinaldi in the 1960s. For all our efforts and new technologies, there is still a tremendous amount we just don't know about these monuments. Some pretty fundamental things like their actual dimensions. It blows my mind that we've never cleared off the base of the third pyramid at Giza, for example. It would be incredibly interesting to see and examine its true bottom courses, to see its foundation. Is the bedrock tiled, like at the other pyramids? Is there a socle? What does the interface between the pyramid and the foundation look like? What is its true perimeter length? During the last couple of years, Dr. Mustafa Waziri, who was at the time the head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities in Egypt, dug a hole in front of the third pyramid and exposed the massive granite casing stones of what are at least 2 courses that sit below the current level of the ground. After filming this and then making some claims about wanting to rebuild the third pyramid with all of the broken granite casing stones laying around, the hole was filled back in, Waziri lost his job, and nothing's happened since. The mighty Red Pyramid at Dashur is in a very similar state in that we have never exposed its true base. The modern staircase that's been constructed for tourists to begin the climb up to its entrance has just been concreted over what is ultimately centuries-old quarrying rubble that obscures the bottom courses and the foundation of the pyramid. My point here is that despite authoritative statements that are made by the mainstream and certainly by their apologists here on YouTube, there is a whole lot that we don't know about these monuments. But the quest most definitely goes on. Some people, including myself, might argue that this pursuit of understanding in and of itself is the reward. It is the purpose and the path. At least that's held true for me. The pyramids of Egypt have long been a fascination of mine in their own right, but they're also a major component of a much larger mystery, that of the origin and cycles of human civilization itself, and piecing together the shattered history of our own species on this planet. I've come to believe that this understanding, this realization that humanity does and always has existed somewhere on an oscillating cycle between cataclysm and civilization, can give us the context to better understand our own place in the cosmos, and it could better inform and guide us into the future, presuming, that is, that our future goal is for long-term survival and to avoid the civilization-ending events of the past. Now, all of that, as altruistic as it might be, might seem like a bit of a heavy introduction to what is ultimately a video about exploring beneath the mysterious Black Pyramid at Dashur. However, as with all of these topics, nothing exists purely in isolation, and, at least from my perspective, context matters. This is probably why I struggle to put out videos that are less than 45 minutes long. A little over a year ago from when I'm publishing this, I was given the rather rare opportunity to visit and explore one of the less well-documented parts of ancient Egypt, which is the maze of passages, chambers, and artifacts that have been cut into the ground beneath the crumbling and so-called Black Pyramid of the 12th dynasty pharaoh Amenemhotep III at Dashur. I was, predictably, pretty excited by the opportunity to see something new, at least new to me, but what I found by exploring here, as well as researching the works of those who had been here before me, very much helped to contextualize and solidify some of my opinions and theories about ancient Egypt. The Black Pyramid itself and the architecture found beneath it are entirely dynastic Egyptian in origin, based on my observations and from my perspective. It is in the differences that we can observe between this pyramid complex of a mud brick Middle Kingdom pyramid and those of the much older megalithic stone pyramids like the nearby Bent and Red pyramids that offer us insight into the true mysteries of this place and the blatant contradictions in the orthodox explanations for them. As anyone who's studied them will know, not all of the pyramids in Egypt are alike. They vary considerably. For the purposes of this video, we can broadly categorize them into two classes: the mighty megalithic stone pyramids and those made from mud brick. Although most people likely consider the pyramids to be artifacts of the oldest period of ancient Egypt, the Old Kingdom, that's not quite true. However, certainly the most famous of them, like the Great Pyramids at Giza, or those massive stone pyramids at Saqqara, Abusir, Dashur, and Maidum, they're all considered to be products of the early dynasties, 3, 4, and 5, of the Old Kingdom. That said, the dynastic Egyptians were still building pyramids in the Middle Kingdom, although they are less well known, likely because they don't share the remarkable attributes of the more ancient structures. The pyramids of the Middle Kingdom are not made from stone, but rather mud bricks, and then they're cased in stone, with the casing being later quarried and recycled in most cases, so today these structures are generally dilapidated and decidedly un-pyramid-like in appearance. The practice of pyramid building didn't quite end even in the Middle Kingdom, however, as the last or newest, if you like, pyramid of Egypt is thought to be that of Pharaoh Ahmose I, the founder of the New Kingdom, located at Abydos and built as a symbolic tomb around 1550 or 1525 BC. As I've discussed in the past, serious contradictions start to appear when you take a closer look at the specifics of the timeline for pyramid building. Primarily the fact that the largest, most complex, most precise, and most astronomically logistically difficult pyramids built were amongst the very first ever constructed, at least according to the established history of ancient Egypt. I dived into this topic in detail in this video, the improbable timeline of the Old Kingdom mega pyramid builders, and I'd recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. It will grant a lot of context to the topics I want to discuss here. In summary, however, here's a key point. You'd expect, from a technological perspective, and across time in a continuous civilization, that levels of complexity, sophistication, and precision would increase over time. It's only natural, after all, and it's why a modern Porsche 911 works a lot better than a horse-drawn cart when it comes to racing around the Nürburgring. At its core, comparing modern automobiles to horse-drawn carriages or Model T Fords is fairly demonstrative that the design for transporting people around has improved over time. You can apply this seemingly obvious concept of technological progression and improvement to almost any aspect, industry, or item in our civilization, and it will generally hold true. Whatever it is, we typically do it better, more efficiently, and more effectively than in the past. We improve our capabilities through practice, iteration, and research, with few exceptions. As a general principle, I think this is easily demonstrable, quantifiable, and I think it's well established. With that in mind, one of the largest contradictions of ancient Egypt, and indeed of other megalithic locations like the Sacred Valley of Peru, is that it seems this basic principle of technological progression is somehow reversed, or at the very least, does not hold true. Whether it's Egypt or South America, the most advanced monuments and artifacts, the most precise, the most difficult from a logistics perspective, are also somehow the oldest, the bottom layers, and somehow the product of the very earliest periods of these civilizations that they're credited to. This might not be such an issue if these layers existed in isolation, but they don't. The contradiction stems from the sheer technological disparity between the evident layers, and this huge gap is observable across different categories of artifacts, as well as in architecture, things like pyramids. The precision and craftsmanship of the pre-dynastic and early dynastic hardstone vases versus the alabaster or handmade industry of later times. The huge megalithic granite structures and single-piece columns of the Old Kingdom versus the cellular sandstone constructions of later temples. The precision-made single-piece stone boxes that go back to the early Old Kingdom versus the obviously handmade examples from later times. The difference between precision and handmade statues. The examples can and do go on and on. This huge gap in technological sophistication across certain ancient artifacts or architecture is a core tenet of my hypothesis that I call the tale of two industries, and there's quite a lot to it. I've covered it in multiple videos and presentations, most comprehensively in this recorded presentation on my channel titled, predictably, The Tale of Two Industries, and it's linked below if you want to get into it further. In any case, all that preamble is just to give some context for the points that I want to make as we explore the Black Pyramid. As mentioned, the Black Pyramid can be found at Dashur, around 21 kilometers to the south of the Giza Plateau. Dashur is better known today for the other pyramids found on this site, the massive stone pyramids known as the Bent and Red, with the Black Pyramid sitting just to the east of them, and looking like some sort of eroded hill when observed from a distance. Attributed to the pharaoh Amenemhet III of the 12th dynasty of the Middle Kingdom, it's said to have been constructed around 1850 BC. With a solid core made up of mud bricks, the outside was, originally, cased in the same fine white Tura limestone as other pyramids, and it was apparently a true pyramid in shape. Today, nearly all of the casing stones are gone, with only fragments and remnants from quarrying remaining. John Shea Perring, who visited the site in 1839, stated, quote, "It is called by the Arabs Haram es-Soda, the Black Pyramid, and is now much destroyed, as it has afforded materials for the houses and tombs of the neighbouring village of Menshir." End quote. The most famous part of the Black Pyramid might not have ever actually been a part of it at all. One of the prime artifacts that is still housed and prominently displayed in the Cairo Museum is its capstone, the pyramidion or benben, that supposedly came from the Black Pyramid. Made from basalt, it was found nearby the structure in the year 1900 by Gaston Maspero, and it's been in the museum ever since, quite understandably because it's spectacular. Its good condition seems to indicate that it was never installed on top of the pyramid, where it might have been subject to some erosion or at least wear from wind and sand. Also, the name of the god Amun was chiseled out of Amenemhet's cartouche, which was most likely done during the reign of Akhenaten in the 18th dynasty, around 1350 BC, when he tried to change the religion of ancient Egypt, a change that was reversed on his death. Akhenaten is a whole other story for another day, but if this 4.5-ton pyramidion was on top of the pyramid with its casing stones, it would have been very difficult to access it in order to hammer off a part of a god's name. It'd be like trying to climb the Bent Pyramid, or climb up to the top section of the Middle Pyramid at Giza, both of which still have their steep and very smooth Tura limestone casing. This pyramidion was most likely housed nearby to the pyramid, perhaps in the pyramid temple, and it was defaced there by Akhenaten's stone carvers. Back to the monument itself, even though it's made from mud bricks and not from stone, it's still quite an impressive logistical achievement. Dieter Arnold estimated around 20 million mud bricks were involved in the construction of the pyramid and of the surrounding enclosure walls. The structure, when cased, would have had a base length of 105 meters and a height of 75 meters, 344 and 246 feet respectively. The first modern excavation work here was undertaken by Jacques de Morgan in 1892 as part of his overall work at Dashur, and all of the extensive work to dig out and clear the passages and chambers beneath the pyramid was completed by Dieter Arnold and the German Archaeological Institute in 1983, almost a century later. De Morgan dug more than 200 meters of tunnels over 100 days into and through the body of the pyramid before finding stone slabs that turned out to be part of the ceiling of the substructure. He spent several seasons at the Black Pyramid, but didn't uncover all of the passages and chambers. That didn't happen until Dieter Arnold's work in the 1980s. If we rotate De Morgan's plan so that the north is facing up, we can compare it to Dieter Arnold's plan, which shows the addition of the whole southern section of the underground. Many thanks and credit as always to Keith Hamilton for creating this coloured plan in his layman's guide. The Black Pyramid is today not open to the general public, but it is possible to arrange special permissions to enter it, or more correctly, to enter below it. As far as we know, there is nothing inside the superstructure of mud brick itself. The entrance to the underground is on the eastern corner and is kept bricked up with masonry. In order to access it, the keepers and the ministry personnel have to unbrick it for us, and power for the lighting is provided via a smoky alt generator.
As you can see, my friends, the entrance is sealed with blocks. So every time we have a private permission, the workers gotta remove these blocks, and when we leave, they gotta build it again.
So they seal it up with blocks and they literally remove the blocks for us.
Jesus.
Thanks. I got it. Hot? Phew, it is hot, huh?
اقول لك على حته خليها بس مكانها ورا الباب كده عشان هو طالع كده احنا موجودين اهو.
So yeah, the whole underground here was extremely hot and humid.
So entering the Black Pyramid, quite warm. Although it's getting a little better.
Yeah, that's humid. Holy shit.
It's probably going to get better as we go down though. I bet it gets a little cooler.
No, it really didn't.
So what is this, limestone blocks or limestone bedrock?
Original limestone ceiling.
Original limestone ceiling.
Restoration.
Walking down into the substructure of the Black Pyramid, you might immediately notice a significant difference between this descending passage and those of the megalithic stone pyramids. This one seems to have actually been designed for humans. We are walking down it upright, and there are stairs cut into the floor of the passage. Compare that to any of the ancient megalithic stone pyramids and their entrance passages. I've been inside pretty much all of them, and it's a huge difference. The Bent, the Red, the Great Pyramid, the second and third pyramids at Giza, the Maidum Pyramid, even the stone satellite pyramids, they all have a far more difficult entry passage. Typically, they're between 3 to 4 feet square, with the Bent Pyramid being the tightest of them all. Yusuf likes to say that they call it the Bent Pyramid because that's how your back will be after you visit it. In all of them, the angles are much steeper, and we, in modern times, had to add in the wooden stairs as well as the handrails to aid in access. You have to do the pyramid crouch walk to go down them, or go down backwards at an angle.
Turning around.
More comfortable doing this button backwards.
Yeah, me too.
These passages would be very difficult to navigate without the handrails or the wooden floor. It'd be more of a slide than anything. And once you go down these passages, how exactly are you going to get back out? Better hope you tied a rope at the top. Otherwise you're going to have to brace yourself against the side of the passage and basically climb out. It really does not seem like these passages, or even the entire interior of these great stone megalithic pyramids, were ever designed for humans. Let's consider the Great Pyramid for a minute, and let's do so from the Orthodox perspective. Zahi Hawass and the rest of mainstream Egyptology all want to insist that King Khufu built it, and then was subsequently buried in it. Fine, let's step through some of that process then. I'd imagine, given the dynastic Egyptians' focus on the afterlife, when a pharaoh dies, it's kind of a big deal. Pomp, ceremony, priests, music, the works. The whole thing is a tomb complex after all, right? So, ceremony in the Valley Temple, a lengthy procession up the causeway, a whole lot of ritual and ceremony over many days as his body is mummified and prepared with excruciating detail for the afterlife at the mortuary temple. And then what? We got to get him into the actual tomb, yes? So how exactly does that happen? Do we just put him in a box and then just kick him down the descending passage? Because that's the only way into this pyramid at that time, the descending passage. The very conveniently hammered tunnel known as Mamun's Hole that we use to access the pyramid in these days didn't exist back then. Mamun's Hole leads directly to that intersection between the descending and ascending passage, and today there's a modern staircase that's been put in place there to help you transition between them. None of this would have existed back in the day. Comes to the intersection of the descending passageway and the ascending passageway.
I do have some beer on you. What's the name of the hole? Oh my God.
Mamun's hole.
Mamun's hole.
Al Mamun, the Caliph Al Mamun who dug this. Apparently. But so down there's the descending passageway, and if you go up behind the wood, when you get into that ascending passageway, look behind you, you'll see the granite plug blocks that plug the bottom of the ascending passageway where it intersects with the descending passageway. So I guess no, we can't just kick the king in his box down this descending passage, because he'll just keep on going right to the bottom, and we don't want him in the subterranean chamber. This is the main entrance up at the chevron. All the way down. There's Mark.
It's a nice view out the window.
It is.
Check it out.
It's a long way down from here.
Yep.
Can you imagine the slide?
Oh my God.
Woo. 115 meters. We need to somehow go up into the pyramid, and as I said, there's only one way in via that descending passage. Presumably then, the funeral procession, all formally dressed and formally crouched over, are, in a very regal manner of course, sliding down this passage or crawling with the aid of ropes, and I imagine this makes it quite difficult for the musicians to keep playing or the priests to keep chanting. They're also transporting a mummy, and it better be in a kingly, respectful fashion worthy of a divine ruler on his greatest day of transition. This is likely complicated by the fact that said mummy is presumably encased in, at the very least, something like a 150 plus kilogram solid gold coffin. Or do we think that we've just got one dude fireman carrying him in? This procession has to go partway down the descending passage, and then you gotta get him up and into the ascending passage, which at this point is only accessible through the roof of the descending passage. You are going from a 26-degree downslope up and into a 26-degree upslope. All very dignified, of course, in the pitch blackness of the pyramid's interior.
Pivot! Pivot! Pivot!
Once we're in that ascending passage, the regal procession isn't quite home just yet. Assuming they somehow ohm and tone and sing and ritual their way up through the ascending passage, there's at least one more obstacle to tackle before ascending the Grand Gallery, where at least you'll be able to stand up straight. The 3 huge granite plug blocks, along with the actual ceiling block for the intersection of the ascending and descending passages, need to be stored somewhere while the king is being interred. These are the blocks that are currently in place at the bottom of the ascending passage. The ones that you walk around in order to go up today. You walk around them via the passage that was conveniently hammered in around 800 AD. So it's weird how this big gap, they curved, they took a bunch out of this stone of these plug blocks. They took up, looks like a bunch has been pulled off, like removed off that stone and the side here, maybe to turn something this way as if they were getting it out. It's a slightly related point, but the fact that this granite plug block has been shortened and this large cavity or space has been created, I think is evidence that points to Mamun's hole potentially being cut as a way to get something out of the pyramid rather than a way to get something in. To me, it seems incredibly unlikely that they were able to just unerringly cut this passage into the pyramid to hit precisely this intersection between the ascending and descending passage. I do think it's much more likely that they were trying to get something out that they couldn't get out through the regular passages or normal established ways out. They had to try and cut their way out, and they made that cut large enough so that they could pivot and rotate and move an object out, which is one of the reasons why they would have shortened up this granite plug block. You can even see on Rinaldi's drawings how they've shortened up this third of the granite plug blocks. It's a related point. My whole point though here in this is to just show you that these granite plug blocks that are currently in place could not have been in place if indeed these passages were used to bring a pharaoh in here for a burial.
Enjoy, my friends.
So yeah, I'm going to come up this way.
Okay.
I want to see the door. This is the granite plug block.
You can't bring these granite plug blocks in afterwards, they're too big, so they have to have been put into the pyramid and stored somewhere while these passages were still open. Most likely they were stored at the bottom of the Grand Gallery, where you have to stack them up. So now, once our kingly funeral procession comes out of the ascending passage, they have to then, fairly unceremoniously I imagine, clamber over 3 or 4 multi-ton granite blocks that are just stacked up at the bottom of the Grand Gallery. Only then can they proceed up to the so-called King's Chamber. One imagines an awful lot of sweating and grunting as part of this procession. I'm sure it's exactly what the king had in mind for his all-important transition to the afterlife. Now, obviously, this is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I think it highlights the ridiculousness of the tomb theory for these giant stone pyramids. All you have to do is start to peel back a layer or two and it starts to sound pretty silly. As we go through the rest of the structure beneath the Black Pyramid, keep this context in mind. My experience down there below the Black Pyramid, in summary though, is that this was pretty obviously meant for humans, and it probably was meant as a burial that was built by the dynastic Egyptians. And it's very different to what we find in the megalithic stone pyramids.
So what, this is the corridor that leads to what, the western entrance? Not fully excavated?
What does not fully excavated mean?
Is that deep?
Yeah, a little deep.
Can you put the light here? Oh.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so western entrance.
Yeah, that stone up here,
Yeah.
lots of iron oxide.
Right. Like at Giza. Oh wow. Yeah. Well, you got the bedrock up in there.
The bedrock here is actually quite poor quality. It's another indicator that points to it being an entirely dynastic project, as it seems like a mistake was made in selecting the location for the pyramid. The weight of the pyramid with all of those mud bricks is pressing down and slowly collapsing the substructure. You can see the ceiling blocks are cracked in places, and later on when we get in deeper there are parts that are frankly quite a bit sketchy to visit. They're definitely in some danger of collapse.
هسيب لك الشمع على الخزنه ماشي
ماشي.
تعال هنا باي كده باي ساب تعال
We'll come back. We'll go that way.
واحد يقف لي على الباب ده
Oh wow. Where's that go?
Someone down there.
No, just lights.
Come back for that.
Got a little box here.
Ah, that goes a ways, yeah.
Yeah. Like a limestone box, yeah. More of this like the dome ceiling, not A-frame. Another more dome ceiling. Yeah. Limestone floor tiles. Jesus Christ.
Quite a bit down here.
There is a lot.
I believe they are all identical except for the last one which has the granite box.
Yeah,
What's
they're
your
all
first
dome ceiling.
impression?
Well, it's like the third pyramid, like Lahoon, you have the dome ceilings. It's like, what's going on down here with so many
Stone
chambers?
masonry
Yeah.
is looking, in my opinion, dynastic.
Yeah.
Yep, lots of
Yeah,
chisel
dynastic.
marks.
Yeah.
Walking through here, you can clearly see how it is built for humans, and that it's much more tomb-like than the interiors of the megalithic stone pyramids. There are several similar, although empty, chambers in this section, and later on we'll see a couple of granite boxes that are down here that had to have been installed here when this was built. They seem to be far too large for the passages. I'll track our progress as we go through on the map, but as you can see from the color coding, it's broken up into different sections. The King's apartments, the Queen's apartments, and the Southern Tomb, which extends out beyond the footprint of the pyramid itself. These labels for the sections are about as accurate as calling the upper chamber in the Great Pyramid the King's Chamber, in that it's purely an inference or an informed guess with no direct evidence behind it. No king was ever found in the king's apartments beneath the Black Pyramid. In fact, Egyptology doesn't claim that a king was ever buried here. Because this pyramid is attributed to Amenemhat III, as is also the mud brick pyramid at Hawara, that's the one built over the labyrinth, another inference that's peddled as fact suggests that Amenemhat, after building the Black Pyramid, wasn't very happy with it, and he had another one built at Hawara, in which he may or may not have been interred. Even the attribution of these pyramids to these rulers is a long way from being cold, hard fact, although, as seems to be common these days, it's treated as such. Jacques de Morgan, in his time, in the late 1800s to the early 20th century, spent plenty of ink and pages attacking Flinders Petrie for his attribution of the Hawara Pyramid to Amenemhat. So these assertions that are on the Wikipedia pages today as facts certainly weren't always treated as such by Egyptologists. Even a shallow investigation into the actual evidence behind a lot of the so-called facts of ancient Egyptian history will reveal that they're more assertions or best guesses, or even in some cases outright fabrications, made up to fit a narrative. Of course, the 6-inch shafts going from the King's and Queen's chamber in the Great Pyramid are soul shafts. The pharaoh's soul needed a way to get to the afterlife, silly. Why do these shafts have doors or solid stone in them then? It's not important. The pharaoh's soul could magically go right through the stone. They're just symbolic doors. One might then ask, if the soul can magically pass through stone, why it needs a soul shaft in the first place. But that would be questioning the official narrative, and you don't want to be accused of believing that the aliens made the pyramid, now do you? It's only in the last 50 or so years that historians and academics have become much more assertive about being the arbiters of authoritative truth that leads to confidently presenting ideas like that one as if it's fact, and that there's no mystery to see here, please move along. Perhaps this is because the nature of the discourse has changed so dramatically during that time. When these discussions about the mysterious aspects of ancient Egypt happened, they happened in the hallowed halls of universities, or in exclusive clubs or societies amongst the aristocratic peers. So therefore dissension and admitting that there were unknowns was fine. After all, they're still the ones who were writing the textbooks. But sadly for some, the unwashed masses had to then go and get involved, firstly with the rise of alternative authors, and now with the internet. Movements and technology that have granted independent researchers, people who aren't beholden to tenure, establishment, or the pressures of the old boys clubs, the chance to present alternative and valid interpretations of the evidence. No doubt, though, this much wider field of contributors with voices and platforms interpreting history has also given rise to some admittedly pretty far-fetched ideas. A phenomenon that's been leveraged for decades now by the mainstream as a technique to attack anyone who doesn't agree with them. Just roll up everyone in the alternative bucket and label them crazy. It's easy. If you disagree with them, you obviously think that the aliens must have done it, probably with their magic crystals, right after they created the humans to mine for gold. Oh, and you're also a racist white supremacist. I've talked plenty about the house of cards nature of what you might call the mainstream story of history. When you get right down to it, our entire understanding of the past is built on some very shaky foundations. Things like, he who wrote on it must have built it, and those striations are definitely not spiral. Or perhaps, copper chisels and pounding stones did all that. And then of course there's my personal favourite, they just tried really hard, it was a national project. So, as we continue to explore the Black Pyramid here, I'll continue to use the labels that are assigned to these sections and objects, but I hope you can keep in mind that when it comes to those labels, or interpreting actual intention or function, we're really not dealing with cold hard facts. Best guesses is often the best that anyone, myself included, can do.
And the corridors, they are made for us to walk straight. Unlike the other pyramids.
Yep.
This was done for actually attacking. Even though I still don't understand why we don't have any inscriptions or decorations.
Just keeps going, huh?
Yeah.
Whoa.
next to the garden.
These are the blocks that used to seal the chamber. This is the bedrock itself up here.
Mm-hmm.
These blocks with some of the
color.
graffiti
It's what
here.
Wow.
The surface.
Well, that actually goes a long way up there. The dynastics could have cased it.
The Morgan is the one that hacked it through the bedrock to find the treasure, you know.
See, this is where he hacked through it?
What we're seeing here is part of the excavation and tunnels that were dug by De Morgan in order to try and find the underground. In fact, this is probably the spot where he hit the ceiling tiles and then made his way into the substructure below the Black Pyramid.
In the inside.
Yeah, basically insulated.
Well, it's insulated, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's warm as hell.
Wow. This one is easy, sir.
Hey, alright.
That's a beautiful piece.
And it did not come through this door. False
No.
doors.
Yeah.
That did not come through this door.
No.
Oh, it had to be built.
This is awesome. You should put maybe, well, I don't know what you scan, but.
Can they pick the lid off for us so we can?
Yeah, sure, why not?
The two eyes looks like they were carved with chisels. These ones.
Let's go, friend.
The two eyes here.
We can put that, let's go.
Oh, that's how you got it.
Yeah, but the 3D here.
So it is.
This is exactly the same design like the one we see in the whole complex of Saqqara.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yeah.
This is how Saqqara was built to look like.
And with the pillars.
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
Everything. Exactly the same with the gates and the inner walls and.
Yusuf is making a reference to the palace facade at Saqqara. You can see an image of it here. It is basically exactly the same thing, the same decoration, the same shape that has been carved into the bottom of this box.
The facade of the palace.
Yeah, facade of the palace, just like at Saqqara, the eyes.
Yes. It really looks so much like the entrance or the outer lines or the walls
Yeah.
of Saqqara, exactly identical.
Yeah.
This design is actually found from pre-dynastic time,
Yeah.
which makes me wonder why they call it the front of a palace, because
Yeah. It's like the false door shape, yeah. It's
did
the,
we find any palace from the pre-dynastic time that I'm not aware of? The box is a true piece of art.
chiseled, huh? This is probably chiseled, yeah? You think it's either repurposed or chiseled or it's...
It's pretty smooth.
I mean, this obviously these features are chiseled. Like I don't see any. Let's see if there's tool marks on it. I don't know. Hard to tell. I mean, and this lid's not a sliding lid. Like it oh, it might be. Like there's.
Look at how it's
Yeah, you're right. Actually, it is a sliding lid. Like it's that. See that?
Yeah.
There's a slope to the.
It's a ramp.
It's a ramp on the. So it is a sliding lid.
It is a sliding, it is a slope.
Yeah, a slope to fit in, so it slides in just this way.
It'll die.
That's interesting.
So yes, this lid and the box itself have a pretty interesting design in that the lid seems to have been designed to not only go on, but also be taken off again, which is not something you'd expect to see in a box that is intended to be, you know, a single-use sarcophagus that's meant to be sealed up once and then stay sealed for all time. It's pretty clearly been designed with the slope in it for the lid to be able to be pushed off. And in fact, there's even room behind this box for that lid to move back behind it. This is a similar design or a similar type of feature that you see on many other single-piece boxes. Boxes like the box in the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, the box in the Middle Pyramid at Giza. Also, most of the Serpent boxes are set up this way with the lids being designed, it looks like, to go both on and off. The lids in the Serpent, for example, are at the same height as the floor of the passages, so you can push the lids off onto the floor. And again, this isn't really a characteristic you'd expect to see in a box that's only intended to be used once.
It can go through the skin.
How they charge you here? That's how it's supposed
Yeah.
No, that's a light too.
It's beautiful, but it doesn't reflect the same result like the one inside
Red.
Lahoon.
the Lahoon.
Yeah.
You know, the one inside the Lahoon is different.
Yeah, this could be handmade, yeah. I mean, this ground, it is ground pretty flat. It's a nice piece. I mean, this line isn't particularly straight, yeah.
So the question really is this a single-piece precision-made granite box? Well, the answer is I don't really know. It's hard to say or to make a determination on these things without actually measuring it and trying to define things like precision. We do know that in the Middle Kingdom, the dynastic Egyptians were very capable of doing really good work in granite. There's a lot of statues that were made during this period that are pretty good. You also do have other boxes that for sure were made by dynastic Egyptians. I don't really know if this one falls into that category or not. The finish, as Yusuf said, isn't quite up to the same standard that you'd see on things like Serpent boxes or the Lahoun box or other boxes of that type. Also, it does seem to share some characteristics with other boxes that are definitely in that precision-made category, in that the lid goes on and off. There's some evidence that this box has been renovated and reused potentially. The eyes that have been carved into it are much rougher, definitely chiseled in, don't seem to reflect the same surface finish as the rest of the features on the box. So it is possible that this is a reuse of a box that may have been put in here when this structure was built. And we do know that the dynastic Egyptians did that sort of thing. You can go to the museum in Cairo and find boxes that have lids from different boxes. There's clearly reuse going on. At Tanis also you can find boxes that have been reused and rematched and repurposed. They would not just do this with boxes, they do this with all sorts of things. Statues, architecture, even parts of giant statues have been reused several times over. So it's certainly a possibility that this box could be an older artifact that was reused and repurposed and put inside this set of passages and chambers beneath the Black Pyramid. But we don't really know. It'd be great to be able to measure this thing, maybe scan it and define and basically find out whether or not it has those characteristics of other precision-made boxes.
Definitely. And the work on the granite stone box is amazing. Even with the best polishing, we could still see the effect of the impact for the hammer.
From the hammer.
Like the one in the Lahoun.
Yeah, where it's like literally ground flat.
Yeah. It looks like they were trying to create the same pattern like the one we see in the walls of Saqqara here.
Yeah,
it's actually a very good
right.
design.
Yeah, very similar to Saqqara.
He said they did find here leftover from burials, but the academic records say that Amnahad III was buried in Hawar.
Yeah.
So I told them it could be, of course, the other burials that took place inside the pyramid.
Yeah.
Because like, why would you leave a whole project like this deserted?
Yeah.
Everything is reflecting the capability of the dynastic Egyptians, the size of the blocks.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The corridors, it makes sense that they make it higher so we can walk.
Yeah, right. It's not a it's not a typical pyramid.
The one question we always ask, if they could make the grand gallery so high, why they make the other passages so
small.
This is for access. For
Yeah, this is for people. Like this is built for people.
not a machine.
In this rock.
Another A-frame room. Not A-frame, sorry. Tilted. There's another one. So many chambers. So many chambers.
What's your name?
Yep, I got it. Thank you, sir.
Where's the sand going? Where's the dust and the sand going to the drainage?
God damn. They were pumping out these bedrooms, weren't they?
Thousands of years and this is called hasn't filled.
This hasn't filled, yeah? Yeah, I mean, obviously they dug it down and then they've lined it and whatever, right?
They found it.
Yeah, possibly.
Or maybe they dug into it for like this pyramid's sake. Let's build some shit around it. Yeah. We don't see
I mean, this is, you can literally see the chisel marks on the floor. Yalla, what's
Wash
that?
Shamdir, lead the way, and then we will follow. Just wait until he leaves, until he disappears. And then, this is another one of those Canop jars boxes.
Yeah.
Like the ones we saw in the museum.
Canop
Like the
jar
one with
jars,
yeah.
This top is too big for that.
Squeezing in here. Quite a small little space.
I'm crouching. Very narrow access. Pull my shoulders in.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Ah. Ah. Man, fuck's sake. Whew.
Here we go.
Yeah, let me get in there.
Dude, they found these things, man. That's it. That's how they made it.
I don't know.
Let's see.
Wait.
Ah, yes. We found the
It's
secret.
not limestone, it's actually dolomite. Like the one we find in the quarry.
Yeah.
Boas would be proud of you.
How did you get in there?
I jumped over the wall.
You are full of surprises.
Wasn't easy. I'm too fat.
So we have another single piece granite box here. This one is housed in a chamber in the Queen's apartments. It's quite similar, at least superficially, to the other box we looked at, although there are a few differences. This one doesn't seem to have one of those sliding lids. It's also missing the palace facade, the full set of decorations around the bottom of it. Although it does have those same pair of eyes, which is a common thing you do find on actual boxes that were used as sarcophagus or sarcophagi.
Same box design, I mean similar, not the edging, but the horse, the eyes back here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole other granite box in here.
Can you tell what it says?
Huh?
Can you read it now?
We go that way and it's gonna curve like that. Go there. Another room.
Assume the position.
Yeah, we will go. Go on, yeah.
Hey.
Another box. Oh, another box.
There's a human bone inside it too.
Yeah.
Just want to take a photo. I'll take a few. Pretty interesting.
And this one has a decorated base.
Yeah.
Yeah, similar to the Sakara. Wow. So remnants of a wooden box in here.
It looks like they filled the entire chamber with pieces of stones
Yeah,
after they made the burial.
yeah. It's still a nicely made box, but yeah, like you said, you can see the pounding marks in it.
Yeah.
One more granite box here. This is another one in the Queen's apartment area. It's very similar to the first one we looked at. It does have that facade that matches Sakara down at the bottom. It also seems to have a sliding lid on it. From here, I'll be honest, I don't quite know where we went on the map. We did go into the southern tomb area. It's a bit of a maze. It's a bit of a labyrinth down here. I actually don't think the map from Dieter Arnold is entirely correct. I couldn't quite get it to make sense. We do go up what seems to be the staircase towards the western entrance here, but then we get into a bunch of other little passages and mazes in the southern tomb area. Parts of this you'll see are a little sketchy. They've been collapsing in, and then there's also some parts that are literally made out of mud brick with no reinforcement, which is also kind of sketchy.
Oh my God. I love the labyrinth. أنا أموت في المتاهة. خش تمشي كده على طول على طول.
سيبك من الشارع. هي انت عوقت ليه؟ خش هنا. يلا الراجل ده يتفرج طيب. خش يا ابو محمد هنا اتفرج الاول. خش هنا.
خش يا أبو محمد اتفرج. Take a look يا أبو محمد. It's a nice place inside. He said be careful because there is a labyrinth. I told them I love labyrinth. That's strange.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, this is solid, yeah.
Worn out and the thermite got the best of it.
Yeah.
The ones inside the other pyramids didn't suffer the same.
So is there anything above this, or this is just ceiling?
It looks like the bedrock ceiling.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's already, you can see the mud bricks.
Yeah.
on here.
Yep.
The thermite really got the.
Yeah.
Some ancient Egyptian logs of wood.
Yeah.
That's something you don't see every day.
No. Where'd they go from here, upstairs or?
Yeah, we're gonna move upstairs. The fact that they actually made steps,
Yeah, right.
a staircase, it can reflect that, yeah, the design was made for people to actually go in and out.
Yeah. Wooden ceiling again.
بوديك في نفس الوقت للممر اللي هناك بس احنا فينا الواي فاي بتاعنا عشان محدش يخش دي حاجات متنقلية هنا في الأرض
كل ده متلاقي جوه؟
ها؟
ودي انهيارات؟
What's in there?
Lots of rubble, they sealed it because it's not
Collapsing?
safe. Yeah.
هو دي كشاف اللي انت جايبه؟
بس ودي بتطلع على بره مكان مدينة؟
نعم؟ لا ده يوديك بقى على على الأواني الكندية.
Behind your head.
Yeah. No kidding.
I think this part of the southern tomb could possibly be a later addition, just like these super tight little passages. It's also possible that this is a robber's tunnel. Pretty much all of the tombs, the burials, things like that were all robbed in antiquity, and quite often there were tunnels cut by the tomb raiders trying to get in there to get at any of the treasure or gold or things like that. Woo.
الخشب بطيس. راح فين؟ كفاية على كده. ده قديم يا عم. بصور فيديو يا بشوي. يلا. يا بهدلة والله أكتر.
You got the easy way? What's down there?
What's down there?
What's down there?
Down here?
Down there.
A long hallway and mud brick with no shoring. I was just like, nah.
I really don't blame Kyle for not wanting to go down there. He's got kids, after all. You definitely have to make those decisions when you're faced with them. We did end up going down this passage, though, because what's at the other end of it is actually pretty cool.
There goes Yusuf.
It certainly is pretty sketchy, though. The only other documentary or bit of footage that I could find on YouTube was a documentary produced by Mark Lehner, or at least starring Mark Lehner, where they went down beneath the Step Pyramid, and he found it really sketchy as well, and eventually had to scarper out of there because he was worried about it collapsing. So I can understand why this place is not open to the public.
Well, it's a bit cooler. There is some framing.
العظمة نعم.
I have to squeeze.
حكش عليه بقى.
لا لا
خليك حنعيش.
هو اللي جيت.
Wow.
This is an alabaster canopic box. It was meant to hold several of the alabaster canopic vessels, clearly part of a burial. It's absolutely spectacular. No doubt it is something that was done by the dynastic Egyptians. Alabaster, as you should know, is quite a soft material. They were certainly able to carve it and make intricate shapes for it. And if you go to the Egyptian Museum or you go to the Grand Egyptian Museum, you can find several of these types of vessels that are holding canopic jars, typically like also alabaster vessels with intricately carved heads, the heads of gods and things like that. But quite an amazing find to see something like this still down beneath the Black Pyramid.
The Black Pyramid.
The Black Pyramid of Dashur.
Of Dashur, Amenemhat the Third. Some interesting stuff in here.
So it's precise
Alabaster.
work.
Yeah, it is precise work.
But it doesn't reflect the power tools.
No.
There's no undercuts.
Yeah, and it's rounded at the bottom a little bit.
Yeah, so
You don't see spirals.
You don't see striations.
And it's alabaster, it is soft, you can do it, but beautiful stone, like holy crap.
Beautiful craftsmanship as well.
Yeah.
But it's not like the ones underneath the step pyramid with the power tools and the tubular drills.
Yeah, not the same thing, right?
Not the same.
But quite an adventure getting in here. Holy crap, it's like a labyrinthian here first time. Crazy tight in some spaces. And I'm large, and it was a squeeze, but you know, it is fun. Enjoyable doing this stuff.
All right, there it is, the Black Pyramid out at Dashur. I hope you enjoyed that look into it. I certainly enjoyed the chance to get down there, even if getting out on its own can be a little bit hazardous.
I'm good. It's fine. Yeah, just it's fine. Fine.
As I've said a few times throughout this video, I do believe all of this work we're looking at least the architecture, is certainly, it's dynastic. I think it was absolutely a dynastic project in the Middle Kingdom or thereabouts. It still has a bit of mystery around it, given that we attribute more than one pyramid to Amenemhat. It's hard to say exactly what the purpose was here. There certainly looked like there are several burials intended, kings and queens, and then the whole place may have been extended at some point with the addition of those southern tombs. We don't really know. In a lot of ways, I think the comparison point is what's so interesting about this, when you can look at what is clearly a subsurface tomb that's designed for humans to both access, to use, and then also to be used as burials, with all of these different chambers that are sort of individual burial chambers. There's a huge contrast between that and what you would see going inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, for example. There's a lot more what seems to be functional design elements in that pyramid, along with it being, you know, much more megalithic, much more precise, much older. In some ways, the Black Pyramid at Dashur and then the other mud brick pyramid out at Hawara, the one that's at the Labyrinth, both of them are attributed to Amenemhat III. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to the mystery of all of Sneferu's pyramids that are attributed to, you know, essentially the beginning of the 4th dynasty with the pyramid at Maidum, then also the Bent and the Red Pyramid. One wonders why a single pharaoh would need so many pyramids. And one wonders why, once you start to build that final pyramid, why you would continue and then finish your earlier pyramids. It's always been a big mystery to me as to, you know, why, if he abandoned the Bent Pyramid to then build the Red Pyramid out at Dashur, why he left the Bent Pyramid up. I mean, why go and quarry more stone? You have a very convenient source of stone right there. It's called the Bent Pyramid. If you are abandoning it, if indeed the purpose of these pyramids was to serve as your burial place, as your tomb, then why not just reuse all that stone you've got sitting around? All of those blocks could have been used in the superstructure of the Red Pyramid, but that's not what happened. The Bent Pyramid was all finished, as was the Red. So I personally am quite skeptical about the whole story that Sneferu built all of those pyramids, let alone the logistical challenges of trying to build 3 of those massive pyramids in something like 40 years. It actually exceeds the logistical challenge that is represented by the Great Pyramid, it apparently being built within, 20 to 25 years by Khufu. I'm actually, one of the reasons you might have seen me measuring some of the stones around the middle pyramid in that video, in these clips. I am planning to do like a detailed breakdown of logistics and, just how long some of this work might have taken once we can estimate the size and number of some of these blocks of granite. It's going to be interesting to see how those numbers play out at some point. Also, a little apologies for the length of time it's taken to get this video out. I have had an extremely busy last 18 months. I've been on the road. I just returned back from Egypt. I was there for pretty much all of March in 2026. And I'm going to be here in the studio at home for now an extended period of time, at least 6 months. I'm not planning on going anywhere or doing anything other than focusing on trying to get a bunch of content out, because I have quite a bit of it still like in a pipeline that I need to get to. As always, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who does support UnchartedX and the channel via that value for value model. It is the reason why I'm able to keep this channel, essentially sponsorship free. This video is not brought to you by any VPNs or any other crazy product that's making the rounds on the internet this week. I get those offers all the time, but I really don't want to have to do those if I don't have to. So thank you to everybody who does choose to support the work. I very much appreciate it. And if you are interested in supporting UnchartedX via that value for value model, you can check out all of the ways to do that at unchartedx.com/support. You can take a look at some of my merch on the merch store. Get yourself some threads. I've got a new merch store up at Dashur. There's a whole bunch of new designs in there. You could also choose to support me through Patreon or YouTube channel memberships. I do try to create some exclusive content for channel members and channel supporters. For example, on this last trip to Egypt, we got out to Tel Aroba, which is an amazing site. I made a little short about it, but I put together like a 15-20 minute video of raw content essentially for supporters to take a look at that. I will have a video coming out on the main channel about it soon. I also do give everyone who supports the channel early access to register for tours. The last tour or two have sold out extremely quickly. So if you are interested in coming to Egypt or any of the other places that we go, places like Peru with us, and you want early access to register for some of those tours, please do consider supporting the channel through that value for value model. Otherwise, keep your eyes peeled on my social media, also on my website. I will be having tickets available for the upcoming Primordial Egypt tour, which is going to happen in December of 2026. Those should be announced pretty soon. Otherwise, I hope everyone out there is doing well, and thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.